So, back for another video here. I wanted to make a specific video here about Terry Burnham, and which has really been my most recent Twilight Zone project, which is, time flies so fast. This was now a couple of years ago that I started working on that, but wanted to talk a little bit about it. Okay, let's back up here quite a ways. I think there were a few individuals, actors I mean, who became so strongly identified with Twilight Zone that it almost kind of haunted or plagued them. And Terry was definitely one of the three that I'm thinking of. There might be a few more, but these three that I'm thinking of, she was definitely one of them. The first two, Burgess Meredith, being known for Henry Bemis with the Coke bottle glasses. I think that kind of followed him, throughout his life. Amidst all the other characters he played, I think his Twilight Zone role, he did three other roles, but he wasn't identified really with them, I don't think, with the other ones, good though they were. But that one really followed him throughout his days. And the other I'm thinking of is Bill Mumy, who will always be known as Anthony Fremont, in a very creepy role. And Terry Burnham as Marky in Nightmare as a Child. Terry was it goes without saying, a virtuoso actress whose career was, definitely much shorter in duration than Burgess Meredith or Bill Mumy. I think she really became identified strongly with that role, and I think it really kind of plagued her in a way, because there was no other Twilight Zone role quite like that. I mean, she had a really an Herculean task, a monumental task, and the casting, I don't know how, if she had to come in and read for it, or if they just knew how good she was and cast her in the role, but nobody else could have done that part. And it was just such an unusual role, and it's been unfairly criticized in one publication that I will not name, but that criticized it and criticized her performance. And I think it's kind of, because of that, it's kind of gotten a bad rap. But at the same time, there are plenty of us who really saw the value in it. But I mean, that character was just so poignant and so really pointed that I think it haunted her a little bit. And I think for many years, I don't know, I'm fairly certain that she had some stalkers, but Terry Burnham was very good at staying very, very hidden. And I'll explain what I mean by that. It's not just an idle comment. It's based in fact, come to find out. The last time, upon the official announcement of her death, which was in February 2016, she died in October of 2013, a lot of her former classmates, dozens of them, came forward with communication on the Twilight Zone Museum Facebook page. And these are people who knew her very well. Not a one of them had a bad word to say about her. They said she was, the nicest girl you could have ever hoped to meet. But I think it's at a certain point, once her career in show business ended, that was also the end of. She really just dropped off the planet. And nobody really heard from her after about 1972. And I think it was partially due to maybe reasons of health. Her parents both died in the 90s, and I think they spent the last, I think they spent most of these years caring for each other. I never looked at her medical records, but I knew someone who had them. a police officer, retired police officer in Kentucky, acquired them from an online auction, and reported that she evidently had some terrible spinal problems and other things. And he actually mentioned that she had surgery to correct whatever it was that was wrong, only for fate to rear its ugly head and once again and destroy what had been surgically corrected when she was in a debilitating car accident while leaving the clinic after a checkup or doctor's appointment or something like that. And then I think from there it was really a very slow decline for her. And it's sad, how things like this happen. But from what it sounds like, she really just didn't have any contact with anyone after a certain point. For her adult years, she was not really in touch with anyone other than her family, to our knowledge. So, in about 2012, this gentleman from Kentucky contacted me, and I'm still in touch with him. And he, acquired this property of hers, some, photographs and things, which he later resold to a fellow in Australia, who ended up pretty much buying up all the Terry Burnham related properties. And I know this gentleman in Kentucky reached out to Terry to try to return these, an attempt to return these items to her. He was one of many people who searched for her. I actually knew someone locally who went to 3 or 4 different apartment buildings that she lived in. And the farthest he ever got was talking with one person who lived in one of those buildings for like 40 years. And he said, yeah, she lived here a long time ago. But she lived within about a 10-mile radius. All of her different residences were within about a 10-mile radius of each other. Yet no one knew anything about Terry Burnham after the early 70s. And I know she had autograph seekers. I knew people who wrote to her. I never reached out to her myself because I didn't bother. I hate to say it, but I didn't even bother because I knew I wasn't going to get anywhere with it. So there were people who reached out to her who never got any response. Which is unusual, I think there was definitely something lost there, in that she didn't, reciprocate. But she had her reasons for better or for worse. And I think that Twilight Zone role definitely kind of plagued her in a way. And it was very creepy, and a lot of people were, it's like, who is the lady who played that part? And I think she probably became paranoid. A lot of people looked for her for a long time, and in the Google searches, I'm actually able to see on my website statistics, what people Google. And Terry Burnham's name has been at the top of my, I can read the stats reports every month. She's always been at the top of the list for many years, and I can see who's Googling what and how many people click on the Google search link that leads them to my page, my website. And my theory is correct. People have been wondering about her for ages. So, one of her classmates contacted me. It was even maybe about a year or two before she died. And she said, I work in a law office. I'm a paralegal, and I have access to a Big Brother type database. And I've been, looking for to see if any Terry Burnhams had died. And she looked periodically, and finally, one day, several months after October 2013, she wrote back and she said, Andrew, I think I nailed it. Because I had her social security number, which had been given to me by this other gentleman. And Andrew, I think I found it. She died October 7th, 2013. in Long Beach. Who else? So, from that point, it's probably, it was probably the same person, but nothing was ever really, nothing happened. And there are some things here that I unfortunately can't put into the video because it might be libelous, so I'm kind of having to mentally edit my comments before they come out of my mouth. During this long search for her, when all these people were looking for her, there were several very distinguished folks who were involved in that search. One of them was a university professor from Canada. Another was from the East Coast somewhere, a historian or something like that. So there were some very good people involved in the initial search, and then things really kind of fell into the wrong hands. And eventually, I don't believe any of Terry's surviving relatives, whoever they may be, I don't think any of them really ever came forward. I know one of them contacted the Long Beach Press Telegram, who did the article on her that was released, and they asked for my contact information because I was the one who ended up more prominently featured than Terry in the article, and ultimately it ended up in the LA Daily News as a front page story. And I remember I was out of town at the time. I didn't even know it was going to be reprinted in the LA Daily News, and a friend called me and said, "Andrew, you're on the front page of the LA Daily News." It's like, what? Yeah. I said, "I'm out of town. Could you save your copy of the paper for me?" He said, "I'll be glad to." So one of her relatives did reach out to the paper, and asked for my contact information. I told the paper, yes, you can give them my phone number. And I never heard from them. By this point, though, Terry's remains had been purchased. Someone from back east contacted the LA County Crematorium, acquired the remains, and to my knowledge, they have not been buried anywhere. Ultimately, I got in touch with Forest Lawn Cemetery, having heard through the grapevine that her parents were both buried there. And I talked with them, and they were, at first reluctant, to work with me because I didn't have the remains. But people have asked me, why didn't you go and collect the remains? Well, I didn't want to do that without any place to put them, and this was before, I knew that Forest Lawn was the place where the rest of her family was interred. So I didn't want to just go and pick up some remains and hold on to them, but in retrospect, that's really what I should have done. And so, to my knowledge, Terry has still not been buried. But at the same time, Forest Lawn did agree to work with me. I started a fundraiser to raise $3,500. I actually raised $3,594 towards the cause of getting a memorial plaque made that was going to be installed somewhere in Long Beach, in the Long Beach area. But ultimately, I wanted it to be, a memorial marker or a headstone in Forest Lawn next to her parents, which it ultimately was and became. And it's gorgeous. It is a gorgeous 18 by 24 memorial plaque, and which can be found in the San Antonio Drive campus of Forest Lawn Cemetery in Long Beach. And was placed on October 1st, 2016. I think I got a bit more attention in the media than Terry herself did, although the story was, about her and certainly highlighted her accomplishments. But I was a bit chagrined at the fact that they put my, large photo of me on the front page, crediting me with, undertaking this project. But at the same time, it should have been Terry's picture on the front page, not mine. But a lot of her classmates, as I mentioned, came forward and shared all these wonderful memories about her. And, so she is definitely a much, beloved actress of, many years ago. The work that she did is still very highly regarded. She also did a few films, and I think if not movie of the week, then something similar to that. I don't know if they called them movies of the week back in the 60s or late 50s, but she also had some other challenging roles. Maybe not as challenging as Marky in Nightmare as a Child, but she had some other roles that were also challenging because they knew that she could do it. And I think it's sad that she completely kind of ended her career, because I think she could have gone on to be like an acting, dramatic arts, pedagogue, an acting coach or acting teacher or something like that. Because my God, did she ever know how to act? So I was, very honored to have done this for her, but I think at the same time, it's sad, the set of circumstances that surrounded it. And as one person posted on my website, he said, I hope she finds peace and, happiness and more in her next lifetime. More happiness in her next lifetime to compensate for that which completely evaded her in this one. And it's sad, sad that, that was the case, but, I think that was a very good send-off from that classmate of hers. But I think, in a way, she really was plagued by Marky in a way that, nobody else really was. And as I say, there were just a lot of people who were wondering about this woman, who played this part. And, rightfully so. I guess she chose to stay out of the limelight. I will never know, nor will any of us ever know. But that could have been part of the reason why she just completely stayed out of the limelight. And so there's a lot I'm not talking about here. But regarding this, but I'm glad that there was somewhat of a happy ending with what I was able to do with the help of course, the financial help of others, including Bill Mooney and his wife, Eileen, who contributed to the fund, as well as Michael McGreevy. Bill and Michael and Terry were all on an episode or two of the Disney show together. And also Morgan Brittany, who was, although she didn't have any scenes with Terry, she knew Terry very well. She was in, of course, the end of Nightmare as a Child as the little girl singing on the stairwell at the very end. And she donated to the fund as well. And she said, I love Terry and I always had her back. So Terry Burnham was a very special individual, and I hope wherever she is now, she knows how much, we all loved her, still do, and revere her, and really appreciate what she did, because she helped make Twilight Zone what it is. Certainly she was not, a large part of it. She appeared in one episode, but, it's amazing. I can't think of too many other performances that were as powerful as hers. Really. And, if there was ever a performance, in the vein of, in the spirit that, Rod Serling intended, I really believe that Terry's performance lived up to whatever Rod had, conceived. If not with that episode, then his, concept of the entire series. Terry Burnham had it. And, a few other actors, had it too. I think Bill Mooney had it, and certainly, the larger, the big movie star type actors that were on there, Robert Redford and Ida Lupino and Jack Klugman and any number of others who also really got it, of course, because we all know them for those roles. Anne Francis. And I could go on and on and on. But who really got the format. But Terry, at age, how old was she when she did that episode? She was like 10 or 11 years old. And she got it. She understood it. She knew that role very well. So if any of you are interested, you can actually read the eulogy that I wrote for her, which is on twilightzone.museum.com. But I did want to do this one special video simply about Terry, because, this is definitely one of my rather large accomplishments in my series of Twilight Zone activities. And although it wasn't the happiest or the easiest, it was not easy. Not an easy process. Definitely not. But it was one that had to be done, and it kind of fell upon me to do it. So I hope, as a final closing comment to this, I hope someday Terry does get the burial that she, by rights, should have. But if not, then we accept that, because that's all we can do. But anyway, this is my salute to Terry Burnham. Okay? And thank you very much. And if you are watching this and you were one of the donors, you have my tremendous, eternal thanks for helping make it happen, because you obviously saw the value and value of Terry Burnham as well. So thank you very much.